Speakcies.
Do you ever think about, like, if you went back in time and bought stock in Apple, how you'd be a billionaire?
Yeah.
We'll have a new commodity to add to that list. Dumbbells.
Welcome to Origin of Speakcies. My name is Scott, and I am via Skype right now with my good friend Steve. And dumbbells. It's funny you should say that, because I've got dumbbells in my house right now for the first time. And
where'd you have them? You purchased them?
I have some dumbbells. Yeah, I didn't purchase them. They were given to me by a friend who got some new ones and gave me these ones. So.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Well,
I've got dumbbells sit. I can go.
I believe
grab
you.
them.
Well,
yeah.
You have basically giant bags of cash sitting in your other room right now. I've been spending every day, 3 times a day. I have this circle of apps I go through looking for dumbbells because I'm stuck at home and I can't exercise. You cannot find them anywhere. So this was a very nice person that did that you've basically taken advantage of. I hope they don't listen to the show.
I could put it on eBay. I could put them on
eBay. You could.
eBay.
You should.
Are you serious? Is it really that hard to get dumbbells right now?
You can't find them.
Wow.
And the latest thing that's been driving me nuts too is there's not too many sporting goods stores in the country.
Right.
So there's one that I won't say their name. Let's just say I will say their name. It's Dick's Sporting Goods because it's my time to get back on them. Yeah. So they keep having their app. We'll finally have these dumbbells show up, and then you'll say, hurry up. We only have a few. You go to put it in their cart, and they have a pop-up screen that says airball. You don't have that, which generally would be funny, except for the last 6 weeks I've been trying to get this. And after their app finally tells me that they have some in stock finally,
right,
that they taunt me with it, and I will send you a screenshot that will probably end up sometime this weekend on a Twitter page.
I wouldn't think it was funny if it was me, it was me that was airballing on the dumbbells, but it is pretty funny. And it reminds me of something that I was just thinking about the other day, and I'm not really sure why, but it's similar. I think sometimes companies don't fully think through their snappy sort of copy or their like folksy dialogue for like moments like that, right? So let me give you an example. So I get a call from my mom a couple years ago because something's not working on her computer, which is, one of those times you get a call. Yeah. And she's kind of frantically telling me what the issue is, and something happened, and she keeps going, all I know is a face comes up and it's got X's over the eyes and it says, "It's dead, Jim." And so it's like freaking her out. And I get the Star Trek reference, but it's like you either get it or you don't. And you remember when Chrome would do that, right? Yeah, it would, if it would crash, it would say, "It's dead, Jim." And it's like, for a certain demographic that if you're Star Trek fan, that you get it, but for everybody else, they're wondering, who's Jim and why is he dead? And it doesn't really work. But maybe that's not the demo they want using their browser. I don't know. But
I'm with you. I'm kind of a smart mouth guy, but there's nothing worse when you're sincerely angry. And you know me, if I'm not anything, I'm always sincerely angry. It's never a casual.
I can just see your face every time airball showed up. But that's pretty bad.
Yeah, but it's almost as bad as my arms are right now. So my neighbor, the mayor, apparently got the last pair of dumbbells that you can purchase in the Richmond area, other than I got to find out who's like just handing this money to you later, but we'll talk about that off air. So I've been not taunting him about it. I shouldn't say much to him because his arms are getting bigger and I'm not doing anything. But I've also realize that in real life, when I finally do buy these dumbbells and overpay for them, they're going to be like most exercise equipment ends up in my house. I will probably just walk it right over to the garage and, start hanging some stuff on it.
Right.
But I am starting to slack that my old man power walks are not the same. And, we're going through a sourdough bread phase in my house. And now we've decided, we're not exercising. We're not really going out too much.
Right.
Let's carbo load.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing going on now is the bread, the sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one? There's another big trend. I feel like maybe we were just recently talking about. Can't remember, but yeah.
Apparently buying chicken coops.
That is the other one I think is like chickens, people getting chickens. So it's kind of going to be an interesting, like, I'd love to see the Freakonomics guys after this is all over, like what was behind all that. I remember right when this thing first started happening, my friend Caitlin was saying, was talking about her dad, I guess, is on the board of a bread company. Mm-hmm. I guess I shouldn't say who it is for some reason, because
you don't want Big Bread coming after you. It's going to be my nickname probably in about 2 weeks.
Big Bread. And I was just like, what? I said, is there some sort of psychology behind this? Is like right the first or second weekend. And she said, yeah, like there's some sort of weird psychology behind the fact that, because it's not like there's bread shortages, but everyone's just making bread. And it's not like I guess there are egg shortages, but it seems like for me, it's like I'll just thin out my egg usage before I buy or rent chickens or however this thing is working. But anyway, strange times, man. Well, speaking of chickens, that's actually a good segue. Tonight we're going to do some more animal idioms, and I think it's my turn because you've done what two series on horses.
I think our ratio is about 4-1.
Yeah,
with me being the 4.
This will be the first one I do where we don't talk about Cat of Nine Tails. Of course, now I guess we just did, but yeah. So we're going to get to actually the chickens thing and the fact that people are buying chickens. Did get me thinking about one of the ones we're going to do tonight, which is chickens coming home to roost, but we're going to wait on that. I want to start with one that I feel like is one of the marquee sort of phrases or idioms that that we haven't done somehow, and we've done like a couple hundred of these, and that is when pigs fly.
Pigs fly. So
first of all, do you use this one ever?
I don't think I have, and I think it's strange because I feel like it's one I would say, but I was going through it in my mind, and I honestly don't think I've ever said it. If something I hear, I understand. I think it's a great idiom because it's very illustrative of what it's trying to say. Of when this will never happen. I'll do this. I'll do X when pigs fly. When something that's impossible occurs.
Yeah, right. It's interesting and I have the same thing kind of written down in my notes here, which is I don't ever use it. And again, I don't know that I've ever used it. And I don't think a lot of people use it anymore, but it lends itself to such a stark and interesting visual that it's just one that's going to stick around because the idea of a pig flying. In a minute, I'm going to give you some other options for terms you can use instead if you want. But before we do that, there's a lot of ways you can use it. I thought this was kind of funny. So Michael Quinion from Worldwide Words, I sort of have this vision of who he is. Like even when I read Worldwide Words, I kind of like feel like I can hear his voice, even though I haven't heard his voice, but he has a manner of speaking. And he said that his favorite way to quote enliven meetings was to wait until somebody produced, as he says, a choice bit of wishful thinking disguised as strategy proposal, and then point out of the window in a surprise sort of way. Oh, look, I would say there's a pig flying by, which, is kind of a long way around doing the when pigs fly thing. And that's the thing with when pigs fly, there's a number of ways to say it. So you can say pigs might fly or when pigs fly, or you could do like the long Michael Quinion routine.
That sounds like a pretty big setup. It's kind of got like a George Costanza jerk store vibe to it.
They're out of you. Yeah. But I do have this visual of just him calling everybody over to the window. It'd be kind of funny to do that maybe once. You'd also might get your butt kicked, but But before we get into more about this one, I learned a new term that I had not heard before. So when pigs fly is an example of an adynaton, which is Adynaton, Adynaton. And I had never heard of that, but it's a figure of speech that uses inflated comparison to such an extent as to suggest complete impossibility. So some examples are like a snowball's chance in hell, when hell freezes over.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking about Mike Myers in Wayne's World, and he's like, "Cha," and monkeys might fly out my butt, or something like that.
That's exactly what I was thinking of when you were going to do other other things you could say. That was the one that came to me.
Yeah, that's the first one. And I think, like I said, I don't think I've ever said when pigs fly, but I'm sure I've said, well, when I was younger, I probably did the Wayne's World thing.
Oh yeah.
But I've definitely said, like, there's not a snowball's chance in hell.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that.
I think I've said when monkeys fly out of my butt recently. I think that might have to come back in the rotation. You might have brought back a classic.
Well, before you make your final decision on which one we should bring back, I'm going to do one of my favorite things, which is to look at other cultures and some of their terms that they use in place of this. And there were a lot of them, some better than others. I just jotted down some of my favorite ones. Because some are so bizarre, they just don't even, well, I'll let you decide. Yeah. So Bulgarian. When clogs blossom. Clogs like the shoes. So who knows? Hungarian is when it's raining red.
That sounds intense.
And that's like a Slayer album or something.
It sounds like that could happen.
Yeah, it sounds.
That's plausible.
I mean, when pigs fly is sort of whimsical. When it's raining red is like sort of threatening. Romanian, I don't know what to make of this. On horses Easter. So I guess horses don't get Easter. Now, one thing, and so let me give you another one. The Dutch. Now, I will say these are the worst ones.
Really?
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, the Dutch. We like you guys, but they all can't be winners.
I like the Dutch too, but you tell me what you think.
Okay.
These are the three adynatons for the Dutch. When Easter and Pentecost are the same day.
Okay.
So
it's kind of like we get it. You're religious. Dial it back a little bit.
I mean, but can you imagine being in an argument with a Dutch person and when Easter and Pentecost are the same day? Like,
and if they go Tyler Perry.
All right, here's the next one. Sooner will sheets be bleached with ink than my suffering revealed by me.
A little dramatic, but that's not so bad. I've heard worse.
And then the last one is the feast day of a non-existent saint.
Again, little too, like showing off your religiousness.
They're very religious. And there were are probably 3 or 4 different cultures where they had something that has to do with like Easter. There are a lot of ones of like, when an ant has Easter or something like that. So, well, we had the Romanian on horses Easter. Yeah. The Latvian was when an owl's tail blooms. I don't even know what that means, because I mean, owls do have tails, or do they not? They don't have tails, but
I hope Fiona Apple's listening, because that could be.
It does. When an owl's tail blooms. I like that. Turkish, when fish climb poplar trees.
Very specific.
And then the last one, which is my favorite, which is the Russian, when the crawfish whistles on the mountain. Now you talk about a good visual, a crawfish whistling on a mountain. So I don't know if these are as popular as when pigs fly. I would say that none of them don't quite roll off the tongue.
No. And I just want to comment on the one about the horses Easter, because I could see that being something like was that Romania?
Yeah.
Like that maybe they bury a horse alive for 3 days. I mean, that sounds like something that could happen over there.
There's something there. There's definitely
something to that.
Something to that one. So because we say when pigs fly, well, that's obviously weird. But we've heard it so much, it doesn't sound that weird that apparently in Romania, if somebody says, oh, on horse's Easter. One theory. So where did this come from? It's the phrase when pigs fly has been around quite a while. One theory had to do with a gentleman by the name of John Winthrop, which you may recognize his name. He's actually a pretty influential person in American history. He was a Puritan, and he's an English Puritan who settled in Massachusetts in 1630. He also, just by the way, he was the one, he coined the term shining city on a hill.
Yeah.
Which actually came from the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus talked about a city on a hill. I think he added the shining city on the hill part. He used it very often, and that's one we've heard in political circles for a long time. So I thought that was interesting. But he took notes over his time in as they were settling in Massachusetts. And in 1908, the history of New England, 1630 to 1649, was published, and there's the following quote. And some have theorized maybe this is where pigs fly came from it. Here's the quote. In this year one, James Everell, a sober, discreet man, and two others saw a great light in the night at Muddy River. When it stood still, it flamed up and was about 3 yards square. When it ran, it was contracted into the figure of swine. It ran as swift as an arrow towards Charlton, and so up and down about 2 or 3 hours. So if that sounds kind of weird to you.
Sounds like someone went to Cleveland. Doesn't sound like the Boston area.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. And so when I was reading about this, I think it was in World Wide Words, he's like, I don't know what was going on in the notes of Jonathan Winthrop. Either he saw an alien, was hallucinating.
Well, but Puritans are kind of pigeonholed as being Puritans. You know, most of the time we think Puritan, we think kind of stodgy, not a lot of fun. Puritans actually drank a lot, and maybe he just had a bad batch, you know?
Yeah, something like that. I like and then so the first time I read that, it was just a lot of words, and I was like, what just happened? Right. And so I kind of read it back to myself. In this year, James Everell, a sober, discreet man, and two others. So I like how he sets it up saying like, hey, this guy, I don't know. I kind of feel like if you have to qualify, like you have to say, it's kind of like protesting too much, but either way, that they're saying that there was a huge fire in the sky that turned into a pig and ran away.
But the first thing they wanted you to know is they didn't drink.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't
drinking. And
there were 2 other people there with him. That's the other good one, because they can vouch for it. So who knows? Which, speaking of aliens, apparently this just recently, I know we don't usually talk about current events, but apparently did you watch that video of like the UFOs or whatever?
I saw one a couple of years ago, and didn't they declassify something or officially make a statement that it was an unidentified flying object?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
the 19th weirdest thing that's happened this year.
Exactly.
It's way down. It's not even it's barely top 20.
That's why it's so funny, because it's just not even registering. I mean, and then you're like, well, maybe that's why it's being released now. So we'll get some hot conspiracy talk maybe some other day. But so anyway, this whole Winthrop thing really isn't the origin at all. It's just, it was somebody's theory, but there's no evidence for that. And it's more just, I wanted to read that funny sentence about the fire in the sky that turned into a pig. So where did it actually come from? Well, Phrase Finder helped me out and said, it wasn't the John Winthrop thing. The original version of when pigs fly or pigs might fly had been around for a really long time. And the original version was pigs fly with their tails forward. And that was in a list of proverbs that was published in 1616, John Whitall's English Latin Dictionary. And so the entry was pigs fly in the air with their tails forward. So it was described as something that couldn't possibly happen. So it's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of a lot of other phrases we've done, such as happy as a clam. And you're kind of like, where does that come from? When it's happy as a clam at high tide. Yeah. And this one has just been shortened over the years. But even standing alone, what does it mean about the tails being forward? It's just making it more absurd.
I can see why I got cut. It made me think of the proof is in the pudding is in the eating, too. That seems to get improved through time as it gets whittled down a little bit.
That's actually a better comparison, because my comparison with the happy as a clam, when you hear it in full context, it makes sense, but this doesn't. You're right. That's just, it's gilding the lily. You're already talking about a flying pig, or proof is in the pudding. You don't need that extra piece to it.
Competition. They're both good.
So this form of the expression with the tails forward was used for a couple hundred years. And if somebody was being overly optimistic or gullible, you'd say it got shortened to pigs might fly. So the next time we see it in print is in the book Nomologia by Thomas Fuller in 1732. And he says that it is, quote, likely as to see a hog fly. So this is taking it away from the whole tail, the tails forward thing. Yeah. And then now I thought this was interesting. I could have skipped over this, but it got me off on a little bit of a rabbit trail. There's a book called The Autobiography of Jack Ketch by Charles Whitehead in 1835. And I just thought it was interesting as an autobiography of someone by somebody else. And I just thought that was called a biography. But I guess the idea is it was like a ghostwriter, and that's something that still happens to this day, of course. Mm-hmm. But just, he said, yes, pigs may fly, but they're very unlikely birds. Lewis Carroll, also in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in 1865, Alice said, I have a right to think. And the Duchess says, just about as much right as pigs have to fly. So this one has been firmly ensconced in our lexicon for hundreds of years, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But, why pigs? There have been other cited instances of other animals. Cows might fly. There has been found. Snails may fly. But I think the pig one sticks because it's just kind of the most absurd. I mean, big, fat pig flying. It's a great visual. And I think it's just as simple as that, probably.
And I think it goes back to, again, something we've discussed often on this show, is just the magnificence of the pig and the utility of the pig.
Yeah.
You get bacon from a pig. Pigs could retire just off that on they get a gold medal as far as I'm concerned. But again, another thing you can do with it. Bacon, that new word with an A that you said that I'll mispronounce even worse than you. Sorry, Alan and Sydney. Pigs are awesome.
Yeah, you're right. I actually had forgotten we had done the high on the hog and bring home the bacon. And you had made that point. I mean, bacon is all we need, and yet we also have this classic idiom that we finally tackled. Now, I did want to also mention that in 1909, this aviation pioneer, Baron Brabazon of Tara, better known to his friends as John Theodore Cuthbert Moore Brabazon. I don't know why why the friends had a longer name, but I decided to keep that in.
The first one sounds like a supervillain. I mean,
yeah. So all I know is if anybody wants to Google this guy, he's real. Baron Brabazon.
Did he live on a blimp?
Probably
with like a panther.
But listen to what he did, which is he's kind of like a zany baron. Okay. So this guy, and I have a picture that if you were here, I would show you, but I'll email you later, or we can put it somewhere. I'll put it on Instagram. He, just because he is a zany guy, apparently took a piglet aloft in his private biplane, strapped it into a waste paper basket with a sign that said, "I am the first pig to fly," which, I mean, seems like a lot of work to go to for a joke that isn't really that funny.
You're a baron, you can do stuff like that, I think.
He does what he wants, apparently, but the guy strapped a pig into a wastebasket. I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the picture, and he took it for a flight. So, all right, the next one, chickens coming home to roost.
Chickens coming home to roost.
So before I get into this, I'm curious if you have any initial thoughts on this one. Does it conjure anything up for you?
This is one that I used to use, and somebody I used to work with pointed out that a political figure used this incessantly. And I think we've established here we're pretty big, or at least I am, very big fan of our first Hawaiian president, Barack Obama. But this is one that he, I think, did kind of tee up a little bit too much to the point that it became just cliched that he seemed to use this a lot. And ever since it's like when you hear something and then you see it differently afterwards, that it did, because I did notice, it was like, man, he is kind of leaning on that one a little bit too much. That's, again, why he should have, I think, embraced more of his Hawaiian culture and done something instead. A little more tropical.
So I'm so glad that you said that, because we're going to talk about that a little bit more in this, and even go a little bit deeper on that one. So it was bugging me, and I was going to even have to preface this with saying we're going to be talking about your boy, but it's not necessarily in the most flattering way on this one. So you've already internalized that, which is good. So, but it was kind of bugging me on, like, why is this one that I have like this weird negative connotation with, and I couldn't figure it out. But I said, whatever, it fits with our theme, because again, people with the quarantine are apparently buying chickens, and chickens coming home to roost is something that, I've heard, and I've not really understood it. And I guess it makes sense since I didn't grow up on a farm. What it really means. I mean, I intuited what it meant, which is essentially like saying that whatever you do, what goes around comes around, you reap what you sow. And I guess that the idea is that no matter how much chickens, wander off, they're eventually going to come home to sleep. So at some point, those chickens are going to come back. What I never quite understood is, like, why is that a bad thing? You know what I mean? And frankly, I still don't quite know it, but it's just a good, I guess, visualization of, I think what you sow, you reap actually works a lot better. But where did this come from? So we're going to talk about that, and then I'll get back to my whole negative connotation thing, which ties into the first Hawaiian president. So this idea of goes back to Chaucer, which we've now talked about a couple times this season. And this was in the Parsons Tale all the way back to 1390. And he says that curses are like a bird that returns again to his own nest. So a bird that returns to his nest was the way that this was used for a couple of hundred years. Even in 1592, there were allusions to it. There was an Elizabethan play, The Lamentable. I thought you'd like this title, The Lamentable and True Tragedy of Arden of Feversham.
Solid. Is there an or that goes with that?
There's no or. The reason I thought you would like it is just because because it says the lamentable and true tragedy. So it's like a true fact. He's telling you right in there. But again, in this play, they talk about there's a bird that always returns at nightfall. And the reason it's important is in this play, it was a familiar theme for a medieval audience of a bird returning and sort of the metaphor of your axe coming back to haunt you, which we don't need to go totally into this play because I didn't do any more research on that. There's also a quote in it that says, "For curses are like arrows shot upright, which falling down light on the shooter's head." So same theme. Chickens themselves didn't enter the scene until the 19th century in a poem by Robert Southey called The Curse of Qiyama. And that was in 1810. And it says, curses are like young chicken. They always come home to roost. So that is how we use it now. I don't think we don't really say it like curses. I've never heard it as a curse.
Well, I think it means something bad. When chickens come home to roost, they're not bringing good things back to you. There's a negative connotation with it, whatever they're coming home with.
Yeah.
It's not for a good reason.
Absolutely. So in 1810, that's when this poem was put out, and this saying became the chickens coming home to roost. We still use it that way. So as I was doing my research, I had to bring this up that they brought up the Samuel Taylor Coleridge, STC. That's right, your boy. And talking about how this chickens coming home to roost is similar to the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, where he talks about the albatross hung around the neck. So again, it's evil from days young, or now the albatross around the neck.
And it could be too, I wonder if at this time, and as we've discussed, because everyone's at home, people are making great decisions like buying chickens and building chicken coops. Maybe something similar happened. And I could see that coming home to roost. It sounds like a great idea to, have some little baby chicks. And the next thing you know, your backyard is covered in chicken shit and your neighbors despise you. That's
right. It's unintended consequences.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we don't think about a lot, but in all seriousness. All right. So go ahead.
One more thing. I wonder if for STC, Pantisocracy, which is a real thing, it was this utopia that would be built by poets in silk blouses. I don't know what their stance was on chickens. Like if that was, because I could see kind of like a hipster poet, that would be, it was like, forget about cutting down trees and doing this. We need some IPAs and I want baby chickens.
I could see that because, you want that locally sourced protein
chicken. Yeah.
That's right. So this one's fairly straightforward, and it goes back super, super far back, but it just essentially means, you reap what you sow. But I had finished this one, and then I said, I got to find out. And so I was Googling speech, or chickens come home to roost, political. And I didn't really remember Obama so much using it, but then all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I found a couple of articles. And I'm actually going to reference a blog post by a guy named Daniel Pipes, which sounds like a fake name, but he summarizes it pretty well. All right. So do you recognize the name Jeremiah Wright?
I do. I believe he was Barack Obama's pastor to a certain point until his political baggage made our first Hawaiian president body surf away from him. He caught the next wave.
He did catch the next wave. Yeah. But why do I bring up Jeremiah Wright, and why? And all of a sudden I'm going, oh, this is why I don't like that phrase, is because on September 16th, 2001, so less than a week after the 2001 attacks, I will not quote everything that Jeremiah Wright said, but he basically said, hey, we bombed Hiroshima, we bombed Nagasaki, and now he concluded that, quote, America's chickens are coming home to roost.
And what date was that statement?
That was on September 16th, 2001.
Okay.
Well, so, he'll say it wasn't in context and stuff. Like I actually watched a video of him talking about it. And so I think that may have been the first time I heard it, but guess what? It goes back even further in reading this article and then other articles too. On December 1st, 1963, right after John F. Kennedy was shot, Malcolm X actually responded to that event by saying, being an old farm boy myself, chickens coming home to roost never did make me sad. They've always made me glad. And he got in a lot of trouble for that with the Nation of Islam and was actually booted out of I don't even know how that all works, but was had a 90-day suspension or something from the Nation of Islam for using this chicken come home to roost.
Furloughed.
He was. So that term is something that has been used in this weird sort of way about America getting what it deserves over the years. So it was kind of satisfying to go, okay, that's why this is, I have this like reason I don't really use that one, because I don't want there to be some weird anti-America connotation there.
And I think we know now why President Obama eventually said aloha to Pastor Wright after that.
Yeah, he definitely did. All right, so now before we get into our last animal-themed idiom of the night, it is time for Steve to bring us his new slang.
New slang. So the new slang for this week is the term tea. Like like the drink, TEA, tea.
Okay, I have no idea what that could be.
Well, you will. It's new slang, so you will soon.
Good.
One of the things that is exciting about this new slang, and I will reveal a little inside baseball here at Origin of Speakcies, is I have a list of slang words. Actually, the article is entitled 40 Millennial Slang Words and Their Meanings from the Oprah magazine. So just to let you know a little bit of where I get my edgy new slang knowledge from. Thank you, Ms. Winfrey.
That's good.
So the term is tea. So as you stated, you've never heard it before.
No. I mean, I've heard "not my cup of tea." I've heard,
right.
There's the meme with like Kermit the Frog sipping his tea.
Right. And that is an offshoot of that. So we'll get to that. So there's a little bit there. So tea is a term. I've seen it used a couple times. I actually, for some reason, was listening to a podcast and heard someone else use it. And that was, I think, the acorn from which a terrible slang term grew that we're going to discuss today. So tea, according to Oprah magazine, or pardon me, the Oprah magazine,
right,
is about...
Now, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Who was on the cover of Oprah magazine this month?
This is from their website, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
All I know is I'm looking at the logo, and it's not Oprah magazine, it's the Oprah magazine.
Okay.
So there's still a chance if we want to have Oprah magazine, we can do that.
It was a rhetorical question because Oprah is on the cover of every Oprah magazine.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I've always found that to be,
well,
I don't know. There's just something about having, like, I want to have a magazine where every month it's just me, like with a different,
Scott
sweater, like, or for me, it'd be like a different like hoodie on or flannel. Yeah. But anyway, so go on. I'm sorry. This is the online version of Oprah magazine, but I guarantee I bet her visage is on there somewhere.
It's on there somewhere. It's probably subliminally like in the background. I just haven't realized it.
Right.
So according to the Oprah magazine, tea is all about exchanging hot gossip. You can get the tea, spill the tea, give tea. The term is simply interchangeable with the letter T.
Oh.
So at this term, I'm not going to rely overly on the Oprah magazine, but thank you, Ms. Winfrey. She's probably listening.
But you've heard it. Yeah, I'm sure she is. So is Obama.
Yeah.
So did you just say that it can either be tea like the drink, or it can be the letter T?
Yes.
And by the way, just so we know that this isn't like an April Fool's joke. You said you also heard someone use it this way on a podcast as well.
They did, and I don't want to reveal who the person was. It'll make a little bit sense as we go through this.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to a website called daily.com, and an article they have, what is tea, and how to become a phrase on the internet. I have no idea if daily.com means anything, and I don't like their website just because the way I had to say their name.
Yeah.
So what does tea mean? So they refer back to various resources. Go to the Urban Dictionary, traces that they have a definition going back to the year 2003, stating that tea is gossip or personal information belonging to somebody else. The scoop.
Yeah.
So we got that going for it. A little bit more research, which I've cross-referenced. Daily.com, I'm not going to say that out loud again, refers to Merriam-Webster. Give me a chance to look that up.
Wow.
Webster says we're getting classy now. The very first appearance of this term tea in its current slang form came from a 1991 research publication, One of the Children. I've never heard this word before. And the ethnography of identity in gay black men by William G. Hawkswood. So I know we've talked in the past about like kind of books that everyone's grandparents had
right.
at their house. Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Raleigh or Sir Walter Scott. I can't remember.
I can't either.
So that's kind of like a book that everyone has, but probably hasn't read. So I'm glad we get a chance to go in there. So the first time that was used was in this book. One of the children in an orthography, and I like ethnography.
Ethnography, so it's like ethnography.
Ethnography would be one way to say it.
If we had gone to college in the last 5 years, we would know what that word means.
I should have emailed Alan and Sydney before.
Alan, I don't think Alan knows this one.
He knows it. I believe him. So the quote is, "Straight life must be so boring because everyone conforms. These gay kids carry on. They give you dance and great tea." Brackets, gossip.
Oh.
So this comes back, it looks like, to black drag culture. Not drag culture, black drag culture. Let's make sure we get that right. So how did this term become popularized? I'll tell you.
A rapper?
Actually, no.
Oh, for once not a rapper.
Yeah, from when Chief Keef or Keef Chief or whatever his name is doesn't show up this time. So this term became popular in a book that you've probably heard of. I don't know if I ever read. I've seen the movie, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Haven't read it. I think that's one that I actually weirdly own and never read it.
So I was being a little bit facetious about the last book. I think this is a book that is in a lot of people's, maybe even mine. And I can't remember if I watched the movie, or pardon me, if I read the book, but I do remember seeing the movie.
Yeah.
Well, the real star of the book is, I think, Savannah, Georgia. And actually, this was a big influence on me going to Savannah, which is a beautiful town. If anyone gets a chance, you should go to Savannah. So in the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, one of the main characters, Elaine Chablis, makes a comment about people, quote, finding out her tea. And upon further discussion of that, Elaine Chablis says, yeah, my tea, my thing, my business, what's going on in my life. So again, going back to the drag culture, tea kind of being the gossip.
I could see it as a Southern thing. Like you talk about Savannah, Georgia, it seems, I guess I'm just thinking about tea and sweet tea, and that tea's not so sweet.
And it could actually be potentially a double entendre also, as I'm pretty sure the Lady Chablis was a transgendered character.
And that's, the tea, just being a tea.
So it could have a couple different meanings to that. But that is where that came from. So you had asked where I had heard this the other day, and I was listening to another podcast, and there was some podcast that was hosted by a drag person, but the term tea was used, and I was like, there we go. It was meant to be. The tea was meant to be.
Oh, okay. So, okay, got it. Which maybe explains why I'm not as well versed on it, but maybe I need to.
You should probably take down one of the children in a thoggerant. Damn it. It'd be funnier if I could actually say it.
It's actually funnier that you can't say it because it's a hard word to say.
It's pretty bad. But anyway, comes back to black drag culture. And I could say also with, drag queens being a pretty big thing in the last few years. There's the RuPaul show.
Yeah.
There's the weekend that you had last weekend when you watched a bunch of drag queen movies.
I did.
Texting me.
I will say, what's it called? Princess of, I actually want to get this right because
it's Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen, but I knew offhand. I also know General Zod's in there, which is probably the main reason I want to see it.
Yes. It is. Now I had quite a few Bloody Marys, but it was, I know it was good because then I watched one after it called, and here's the bad thing. The name of it is Cherry Pop. Okay. This is and my friend was showing me these movies, and I was like, "This, what is it? Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was phenomenal, and it does have Hugo Weaving. The General Zod, but then who's the other Guy Pearce?
Okay,
and it is a really very entertaining movie, and then she showed me Cherry Pop, which was pretty bad. It was like the acting, like Saved by the Bell actors were looking at it going, these guys should be thrown out of Hollywood. But what's funny, the reason I started laughing is it shows up in my Amazon Prime recently watched. So I open up to find some whatever Guy Fieri show Logan and I are going to watch. And every time I pull it up, Cherry Pop's like the last thing watched. I'm like, look away, son. You're not ready to watch Cherry Pop yet. But it's not that good. So anyway, that was my weekend. Yeah. And maybe it's like one of those things we've talked about in the past, which is maybe if I rewatch those movies, I'll hear the T thing and know what they mean. But I don't know that I've ever heard it.
So tea is gossip is something I even though it seemed to have been around a long time, I've just recently heard and kind of stuck with me once I heard it. So we talked about the Kermit meme of Kermit drinking a glass of tea. And it's almost like the opposite of it. You know, there is the gossip there, but I'm not going to engage with it. I'm not going to spill it. I'm just going to hang on to it and, you work out. And it's basically something, the top part of the meme will say one thing, and then the bottom half will kind of contradict it, and Kermit's just there minding his business.
Right. But, it's kind of like, it reminds me of In Living Color, too, with where we say, well, I'm not one to gossip, but I heard that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, you're kind of gossiping, but then saying, but I'm not one to gossip. Where you're saying, well, that's not my, Kermit's rolling up the window after kind of gossiping a little bit. But
so
I always like that Kermit meme is always.
It wasn't too. I actually didn't like it because I'm a big Muppets fan. I don't like the Muppets being besmirched by anything.
Right.
That's just me and my Muppet self-righteousness. So since hopefully this will be the last time we ever go to the dailydot.com, I'm going to give you a couple examples of the Kermit meme that they have on their website.
Oh, please.
People will stand in line for the latest Jordans, ... But can't stand in line to vote? That's none of my business. And I'm reading with the punctuation.
I'm laughing because it's so stupid, not because it's funny. Oh, sorry. Was it supposed to be funny?
I'm just reading it. We're being objective. I got another one.
Okay.
Oh, you ballin', huh? Easy to do when living with your mom. But that ain't none of my business, though.
THO.
THO with an apostrophe. Which
that's a nice
I don't
touch.
know if that makes it better or worse.
A little better, actually. It gives it a little, classes it up a little bit.
One last one.
Please.
Your page is private, but your ain't. 2 sugars, please. dailydot.com. So what is tea? Tea is another way to say gossip. Comes from black drag culture. Somehow Kermit the Frog got involved with it. I'm going to have to quote my daughter on this. I'm going to give it a middle thumb because I think it's not totally one that I want to see thrown in the garbage. Like if Chief Keef had shown up again, I definitely would have given it thumbs down. And actually, in a weird way, maybe Kermit redeemed it a little bit and gave it some legitimacy.
Yeah, I kind of like it. And I'll tell you, I kind of again went back and forth as we were talking. But listen, we all gossip, and when you gossip is such a nasty word.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you'll say, or I'll say, hey, what's the scoop? What's the 411?
Yeah.
I don't think I've said that.
I don't think you've said it either.
But it's, we need something new. What's the T? I'm
What's
okay with it.
the T? Ethnography.
There you have it.
I said it.
You said it right. We should actually end the show with that.
Yeah, we should. I'm going to fly over to Australia right now. So that is
okay.
Oh, wait a minute. So what's your take on it? Did you?
I like it. I actually like it. Yeah, I give it a thumbs up. I think it's
thumb and thumbs up.
It's something I can use, and so it's got the sideways thumb from you and the thumbs up from me. So, thank you, Steve, for that edition of New Slang.
New Slang.
Okay, so the last one is a short one, but I wanted to bring it up, and that is "Till the Cows Come Home." And I thought I thought this would be a good one to wrap up our animal phrases one, all sort of with the same or similar theme. And I thought it was interesting because it's sort of like when I say "till the cows come home," I do use this one a fair amount, but I don't really think about it that much. What about you?
I was going to say the same exact thing. I think I use this one frequently.
Yeah.
And it makes, what my knowledge of cows, they're not going that far away. They're not going quickly anywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, this one is going to be very brief, but the reason I thought it would be good to hit real quick is because there are basically two different ways that people have tried to explain this one, and they're like diametrically opposed. So one of them is some of the sources I found would say, growing up on a farm, yada yada, when the cows are going to come home, so it's like a set time, and it's kind of like the chickens coming home to roost, that every night at whatever time the cows, literally a couple places said the cows have to show up at a certain time so that they're milked, so that it's like clockwork. But then when I thought about how I use it, I don't really use it that way. I'm using it like I could do this for an indefinite amount of time.
Yes, that's the way I use it also.
Right. So that explanation about cows coming home like clockwork doesn't fit the saying, but we've had sayings before where that's the case. But the other explanation is really that cows just sort of do their own thing at their own pace. So I think, as you were starting to say, cows can wander off. I mean, that's, cowboys, go rustle up the cows or whatever. And so saying that you'll do something till the cows come home just means, hey, I don't know how long we're going to be doing this or when this is going to happen. The cows are going to come home when the cows come home. So this expression, the earliest example in print is in 1593. John Eliot used it in something called Orthoepia Gallica. It was a French teaching textbook, and he said that, and I have no clue what this means, and it's by a French guy. It says, "I am tied by the foot till the cow come home." Cow singular. So there were a number of other citations where it was used as a singular, but it was always meant like indefinitely. And then I'll wrap with this, which I actually kind of liked. So at some point it became plural when the cows come home. Groucho Marx had a nice play on words here in the 1933 film Duck Soup. And he said, quote, "I could dance with you till the cows come home. Better still, I'll dance with the cows and you come home," which I thought was good. So,
listen, Groucho Marx, he should show up more. I'm surprised actually he hasn't turned up.
And that was sort of the when I was going back and forth whether do I include this one because there's not some like wonderful story behind it. I said, we can end on a Groucho Marx quote because we don't do that very often. So, so there you have it. 3 animals. We had flying pigs and chickens coming home to roost, which I'll continue to not use, and doing something till the cows come home, and a joke by Groucho Marx.
But I do want to point out something.
Yes.
I, for some reason, and I don't know why, am perceived as having maybe a negative opinion towards animals.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyone who's just listened to this episode, though, did I say anything disparaging about an animal?
I can speak for myself. I don't believe that you did, actually.
And,
well, you said good things about pigs. So
that's right, because now that I've realized, I was thinking to myself, why? Because these are pretty much the best 3 animals. Chickens, cows, and pigs. As I have stated before, animals are best when they're dead, because when they're dead, you can eat them. And,
you're right. 3 animals that are delicious to eat. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but some people won't like that. But that ain't none of my business, though. This is Steve. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Origin of Speakcies. Please check out some of our other content, including Scott and Aaron's new video podcast, Panic at the Costco, in which every episode Scott and Aaron discuss some of the crazy changes going on in the world right now. Also, Season 1 finale of True Facts with Robert Banquet comes out tomorrow. Please check that out, as none of us have to deal with Robert Banquet again, at least for a few weeks. Finally, please come back next week. We will have another special guest, and this is one that you certainly don't want to miss. Thank you very much for listening to Origin of Speakcies. That ain't none of my business, though.